Okay, I want to take you a little bit deeper into research and thinking about how your research can help to shape your questions at issue and your further research. So if you start out with your topic, let's say that you are thinking about post-traumatic stress disorder. This is obviously something that Teo is suffering from in ceremony, and several of you have already mentioned in your questions that you've been putting on the small group discussion boards that you're interested and curious about this. So let's say we wanted to look into this topic. First of all, you have to recognize that post-traumatic stress disorder, the title, the name for that disorder, the psychological disorder, did not come up until after the Vietnam War. So we are looking at a time when the novel comes out in the mid-70s. Ceremony comes out in the mid-70s. There's a lot of discussion about what's going on with soldiers coming back from Vietnam and some of the psychological problems that they're finding. But as I said earlier in the last video, this kind of psychological issue was common among soldiers throughout time. And so what was the title for it? What did they call it back in the 1940s? So let's just say I Googled different names for PTSD, and this is what I come up with. And there's some, this is a fairly nice little article. There's an article from 2012 from the Washington Post. Here's something from a history.com. But here's one, and I look at this and I see NIH.gov. That's the National Institute of Health.gov, from shell shock and war neurosis to post-traumatic stress. Take a look at that. What do we find when we go there? Okay, so this is a very official paper, and it talks all about the different kinds of ways that that we've thought of and talked about problems that people have had after wartime service with their psychology. It should be very good. This would be I would call this a secondary source, but it's also very good that you could learn quite a lot about post-traumatic stress and how we've dealt with it and what we've thought of it over the past. It goes all the way back to Hippocrates. And so anyway, and it will come straight up and talk to you about modern psychiatry and how we started to think differently about warfare. Goes into World War I when we talked about shell shock. Kind of gives you the entire background on this, and so it looks like it would be a very good source if you wanted to go deeper and deeper into that research. Another place that I looked was the HathiTrust, which I mentioned to you last month. And here I put in the term that we used in World War II, battle fatigue. And as I came up, I look at this, and here's War Psychiatry, 1995. That's not a primary source, that's a secondary source. That's go all the way after Vietnam, so it'll probably be talking about post-traumatic stress. So with this 1991, this looks like it's about chronic fatigue. So it's thinking about the Boolean system is thinking about the word fatigue here, and it's getting to 1991, so it's kind of moving us through that. Here's one from 1929, industrial fatigue. Let's go down here, and then what do we see? Finally, I look down here and I see the Bulletin of the U.S. Army Medical Department, supplement year 1949. That puts us right square. That would have been exactly when Teo would have been in the hospital, so we'll take a full view of that. And what do we find? We look in here, here's coming up. This is the combat psychiatry, experiences in North Africa and Mediterranean theaters of operation. So this would be right at the time that we're talking about Teo's psychiatric disorder. And here's a foreword that tells us all about it. And this would be like a perfect primary source if you're looking into PTSD, post-traumatic stress. And here's just the first line. During the 5.5 years of World War II, there was little published information about the earlier stages of combat neuroses, though there was no lack of articles describing these disorders weeks and even months after their initial appearance. So this would be a paper that would be right up your alley about this. 236 pages of book. You could probably go right through right here into the table of contents and find something that would be most useful for you in thinking about this from a primary source document. So let's say you wanted to look into something else. Let's say your topic was looking more into like life in Laguna Pueblo, or you want to set up the context for the time when the novel is taking place, the late 1940s, early 1950s. Here's the National Museum of the American Indian. It's part of the Smithsonian Institution. So when you search the online collections, you're going to be searching in the Smithsonian. So you go over here and you see search online collections, and you get this page. This is the entire Smithsonian Institution. And let's say you just want to put into that Laguna Pueblo. See what we find. It's not working. Okay, searching right through, and we come right up. First of all, you can eliminate some of these things, the electronic resources or catalog cards or images, but let's just look down through these documents and see what we start to find. Looks like there's some interviews with people. Okay, Dale Jenkins postcard and photograph collection, that might be very interesting. Here's some images from Southwest, from looks like from the late 19th century. We keep looking down, and what's this? This one catches my eye for some reason. Here's some more, like this is probably some kind of travel brochure, but let's take a look at this. What do we see? Okay, it's something called Straight Arrow, and I'm going to open it up, and there it is, Straight Arrow. Look at that, Ingenuity Manual, and you look at this and you think, what is this? What is this? And it is 1949. Okay, there's the copyright right there, from the National Biscuit Company. That's Nabisco, folks. And this is the cover for a book. This would have been something that would have been packaged inside Nabisco shredded wheat packages. And it's a whole book that basically lays out all kinds of the kind of silly racist ideas about what a Native American person was. So this is setting up your context for the period in which Teo and the other Native Americans who were fighting in the war with him, this is the kind of production, this is the way that Native Americans were stylized by, here's an image of how to shoot an arrow at a poisonous snake and the rest of this. So this is the kind of, gives you a really strong sense of the context. And if we go back to that slideshow, there were also these images. These are postcards from Indian schools. They were called Indian schools. This is the Carlisle, Pennsylvania, the most famous Native American school. This is a whole process that you see in the book where Teo and Rocky are more or less, there's an attempt to turn them against their own people by assimilating them into the white culture. And if you start looking at these postcards, you can just learn a hell of a lot just from looking at them. The way these the Native people are being transformed into, here they are being given, looks like maybe given some inoculation, but cut their hair, wear suits, get rid of your native garb, anything, your clothes, your culture is basically trying to attempt to shed culture. And so that's really what you're seeing in these postcards. Here we go, sewing room, and that's at the Carlisle School. Fascinating stuff here. This is primary source material. These documents could really help you in thinking about, like, what is this period? What was this about? Let's do another little search. Here we go. So here I've talked to you about the Chronicling America, the digital newspaper archive, and if we go back right to there, if you just Google it, Chronicling America, and I have it represented in several different spots on this on our website and on our Canvas page. But let's change the dates. So we're going to look at newspapers, and we're going to go back to, let's want to look at the period of the Second World War when Teo and Rocky are in the military. And 1941 is the year that the United States entered the military. Entered the war, and let's stop with 1950, which would have been, roughly the time when Teo is going through his difficult transition back to life in Laguna. So let's take a look at this, and we'll just put in, you have to use the terms that they would have used then, and they would not have been using Native American very much, but so we put in Indian soldiers. There it is. I've already put it in, and we'll do a search for that, and we'll find, what do we see? You look at the red, there's on India, and they're talking about South Asian Indians. But if we look at this one right here, here it is. Open it up, blow it up a little bit. Too much salute, not enough shoot. Indian soldiers slogan. And there's this whole article about Indian soldiers stationed at this fort are itching to go on the modern warpath. So you can see the context for this too. Once again, kind of simplistic racist concepts using the kind of language, the red men, they're the red men, they want to go on the warpath, this kind of stuff. And so this gives you a strong sense of the context. And this could really help you in starting to think through how you could modify your topic, narrow it, and focus it better. If you're looking into some of those three different ideas about what were the senses, what was the sense of PTSD and the idea of the psychiatric disorder that Teo is suffering from, what were the concepts about Native Americans at that time, and how did Native American soldiers, how were Native American soldiers treated and thought of? There's just a wealth of material out there, and this is another step deeper into the research process.